And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the show. My name is Oz the Wiz, aka Gamertag Washer7, and I am joined as usual by Tai, aka Mr. Tai Talks.
Hey, it
Right?
was good.
This guy come here with his deep voice. Tai, what's good? You sound like you better.
Not so much. Well, yes and no, but I have
Yeah.
fits of like just there now. The cough comes like it comes like sneezes, like and the more I talk, the more it gets itchy and I start to cough. There's certain times when it doesn't come out. Like I can go for like maybe 10 minutes without a cough, and
Yeah.
then some other times I can't go like 20. Sorry, I can go
Mhm.
20 seconds without it. So if it doesn't get better by the weekend, I'm gonna head to the doctor and see what's up. And maybe some kind of allergy or something like that. Because I've never had this before. It's a bit weird.
Oh, okay. So it's not flu.
Not anymore. I was sick, but like the sickness is kind of like gone. It's just the cough it still remains.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. No, as long as you're getting better, dude. Yeah. So, what have you been up to? Playing anything interesting recently?
I started replaced, and it's been good so far.
Yes, I was asking you about that.
Mhm. I'm going to see like it's definitely like an interesting game, interesting concept. Combat
Mhm.
feels interesting. Everyone tells me it's like Batman Arkham Asylum, so that's good. Um, I don't know if like I think just from playing the combat, I think sorry, just from playing the combat, I think it would definitely need more mechanics. Put it that way. From a combat perspective, for it to maintain the interest. Like there's some games, and Assassin's Creed kind of falls victim to this, where you've played it all in the first 3 hours, and there's more game to it. It feels like you've already seen it all. Now,
Mm.
replace might have an edge here because it might be story focused, right? And it's already a short game, so you're incentivized to kind of find out what happens at the end. So in that sense, I probably will finish it if it's as short as I think it is, as opposed to Assassin's Creed, which is 100-hour affair. But from a
Uh,
gameplay perspective, I am hoping that the gameplay does do different things. I just don't want to be like hitting, press this button to to counter and this button to dodge. I want like more interesting enemies. I want more interesting combat. I want different weapons, etc., etc., etc.
okay. So, would you recommend the game?
So far, yes, for sure. But from a longevity point of view, I can't answer that yet because I'm only like maybe an hour and a half in, and the game has like mechanics. Like right now there's some platforming elements to it, but does that platforming element involve like running, sprinting? Like I'll give you an example. There was at the start of the game, you're being chased by something, right, or whatever, and you have to time your jumps properly. So part of me was thinking, oh, like, are they going to expand on this? Because this could be really cool where you're running, it's action orientated and you're jumping over obstacles. And if you fail the jump, you die, right? So then you get that jump, and then you do some like there's some swinging as well. So I'm grabbing some ledges, and you gotta like swing a specific way to then time it. So from a platform perspective, there's a lot of potential there that could make the game really really interesting. And then you throw in the combat there as well, which could be like, okay, I'm being chased and I have like a limited amount of time to take out these enemies before I get caught. So yeah, gameplay wise, there's a lot of potential. I'm just hoping that they've utilized it and they've actually done the work. But I'll find out like maybe the next hour or so.
Okay. And like for me, the things that got me interested in that game is number one, the fact that it's apparently a cyberpunk setting, and number two, that it's a 2D game, right? So how do those things translate into the actual game? Okay, let me put it like this: what did they make a good first impression on you?
Yes, for sure. It did. It kind of starts out slow, to be honest, and so I was kind of like, I think there are gamers who I think can deal with games that start slow, I think there's gamers who are a little bit more impatient. Um, I think this is a game where it could have started off a little bit faster because there's an element of it where it's trying to show you the scenery a little bit too much. Like it's kind of, I don't want to say tooting its own horn because it does look good and it's different. And but there's a lot of like walking, not walking, but there's a lot of like running. And I probably even thought to myself, like, yo, is this becoming like Hellblade 2? Like it kind of feels like the length of time from A to B before I get to combat could be like Hellblade 2. Obviously, I might be over exaggerating. I don't know, but I was feeling that. At the same time, I have to say, like, I was a little bit impatient. I was just kind of ready to like fight. But if that's the case, um, I would say studios or game developers shouldn't really like it's still a game, and I know people want to like it's art, it's a cinematic experience, but I think you need to kind of get to the action or the gameplay parts a lot faster than before, unless the actual like walking and running all these things is actually telling you about the world. So if I'm walking and running or whatever it is, before I get to like the actual combat, and there's someone in my ear explaining to me the mission objectives and like this is actually character development, then that makes sense. But if it's just like me just do my own thing, like in Hellblade 2, where she's just like climbing rocks and just walking and like nah, screw that on. Like no, no, thank you. Asha, she there? Maybe you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, my bad. So I was saying, basically, it shares the same design philosophy as many games, where it takes a while for you to actually get into the game. There's nothing. It doesn't have that moment that grabs you. Like for instance, when I talk about a moment that gets you into the game instantly, like games that do this very well, Last of Us, God of War, the original God of War. What else can I think of? Gears does this very well. The original Halo does this very well. Like if you go to some of the biggest games ever made, they have that mechanic or that hook that gets you in within the first minutes to the first hours of the game, without you having to spend 10 hours before it gets good. So you're saying it suffers from some of that?
I think suffering might be a strong, yeah, like suffering in the context of like it does what they do, and I think people are more okay with that than anything else. If I was to change, like I'll give you an example to some extent. I think Claire Obscure, because there's a bit of world building in the sense of talking to characters, especially characters that you're going to meet in the in the future,
Yeah.
because they're it kind of adds to it. And people are talking about like, oh, the gamage or what's going to happen, all these things. I think there's a level of like, okay, I get the pacing here, it makes sense, this is this works. Replace doesn't really do it in a bad way. Like I might be completely overreacting, to be honest, because I definitely know I was a bit tired when I was trying to play it.
Uh-huh.
It's just I think the difference here, and I wonder if, yeah, I would probably say this: Clubs is a 3D game, so I can actually move around and explore and do different things. Replaced is a 2D game, therefore the only thing to do is just to move forward. So, like to me, that's probably the main issue. I was like, yo, I've just been
Yeah.
present forward all this time. Like, I don't have any freedom to go talk to any characters. I don't have any. I'm not picking up items because I know in Club Obscure I was picking up, items that I was gonna probably end up using in the future battles.
Uh-huh.
I was talking to people about like, oh, my grandma left this, my auntie did this, I lost this. Like, people are actually telling me their stories, whereas Replace is just like very isolated, like just me moving. So
Uh-huh.
I think I actually think that's it right there. The 3D part of it, the fact that it's 2D, just makes it
Yeah.
a little bit more. It makes it a little. It just made me more impatient. That's it.
Okay, I feel you on that. And then last thing I want to ask you about the game before we move on to other topics is the art style, which is something that was the one of the main selling points over the several times. Actually, there's two last things. So the first one is the art style, because that was the main thing that has been sold to us for the longest time about the game, is this unique art style. Excuse me. So, do you think does the art style do anything for the game?
Yeah, for sure. One of the points I've always said is that to be really successful in the to be a lot successful, or to kind of give your title a marketing push, is to be different from a story perspective, is to be different from an art perspective, to be different from a gameplay perspective. We're looking at Pragmata right now. Some people might say it doesn't look great, doesn't look fantastic in terms of like visuals. It's quite plain, very gray. Suit isn't like cool. However, the girl's there, your guy's there, but the combat looks very interesting. The whole
What is this?
hacking.
Wait, which game are you talking about now?
Pragmata.
But Pragmata's graphics are freaking outstanding, though, dude.
Oh no, well, I mean the aesthetics. The aesthetics.
What about
like it does? Like it look. I'll give it like like I was watching like a part of
great overall,
but it looks very like there's no color.
Yeah,
and the enemies are very like.
And
one complaint a lot of people tend to have with video games is, and I think I feel it too as well, is that when you're fighting, I rather fight a human enemy than a robotic enemy. There's just something about shooting robots that's just not fun.
Yeah, well,
it's all robots.
So I agree with you. I get exactly where you're coming from, and of course, from a design, it's the same thing I said about Clay Obscure. My biggest gripe with Clay Obscure is the fact that you can tell that they took shortcuts for budgetary reasons, because of the fact that the enemies are all non-human. To create human enemies is far more taxing than making generic robots that attack you in droves. Same thing with Clay Obscure. You have these obscure enemies, no pun intended, that are like these funny clown things, these funny like object things, and they're just easier to create and animate and to diversify than making characters that are like flesh and blood, and that are like monsters and and creatures and then humans. That tends to be more taxing to do that, which is why actually I will always say that I commend what Stellar Blade did, because they didn't opt for that, that and a lot of Asian developers do, where they opt for the robots. So I agree with you there. Like robot enemies are easy to create, much easier than biological enemies.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there. Yeah.
And so when I saw Pragmata, I think one thing that I liked about it was that in the space of all these maybe new artistic styles that are a bit more cartoony, etc., etc. I did think it was a breath of fresh air. But when I look at the environment of the game, they're not like inspiring. And this was one of the complaints I had about Halo Infinite. It was just one look throughout the game, and I was like, oh, there's nothing really here. It's just one place. So listen, I haven't seen everything about Pragmata, but from the trailer, the game looks good. The gameplay, I think it's the game. Put it this way: if you took out the gameplay for Pragmata, like the hacking part of it, and it's just a third-person shooter game with a girl on top of you, I think the fact that the girl is there, it makes it a little bit more interesting. And she's an AI robot, true. But there's nothing else about it that I would say it looks great, apart from the fact that it looks like a standard third-person shooting game. But what I think what sets it apart from itself, sorry, from other IPs, are like, even though it looks like, I guess you could say generic or whatever it is, it's not really generic, because there aren't many games like that art style anymore. Maybe in the past, whatever it is, maybe that was the case. But now it's different. But I would say, for example, this game right here, Replace, looks strikingly more interesting, just from a aesthetic point of view, than Pragmata. Because this is something unique. Like it's a 2.5D game in a 3D environment. It's great. It does kind of play with your mind a little bit, to be honest, because it feels like you should be able to do more within the game. And my mind was kind of like, oh, there is actually anything else to do. I just have to keep moving forward. Like this is a 2D game, even though like there's 3D elements that feels like I could do certain 3D things. But that's just my mind adapting.
Okay,
So,
I can
something
see
else
it.
that something else I think. I mean, listen, I'm only like 1 hour, a few hours in. That the game, people might like it or not. Is that like there's certain things in the game where you kind of think like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I mean, is there something I'm supposed to jump here? I don't think the game does a. I don't- It doesn't highlight things for you to do than like other games would do, like the yellow paint, which can be fine. But I
Yeah,
think the only reason why it's, and this is just a very small nitpick, and it might even change as I proceed, is that because the game is already it's a 2D game in a 3D space, it makes it harder to see, well, what am I supposed to go? Like, where is the clear sign of things to do? So you just kind of rely on the fact that, like, well, it's a 2D game, I can only move one way. So clearly, that's it. Like,
yeah.
there's something I'm supposed to do.
Okay. That's very interesting. Like for the long, I actually just downloaded it this afternoon as well. I'm gonna give it a shot, but I'll play it on games like this. I prefer to play on the old Rogue Ally. I think they just work a better on that on that platform than on like me playing this on PC fully. This is more for me like an experience that I would like to have when I'm traveling or just when I'm lying in bed.
Yo,
So
play
definitely,
anywhere, baby. You know what it is.
uh, yeah.
Just joke.
Look, I'm for a play anyway, as long as, like, for instance, for me, play anyway is still tied. It's still tied to hardware. You still have to do something, with hardware for to entice me. And again, like with us old school guys, play anyway is your Game Boy. It's your PSP. It's your PS Vita. It's your whatever you can take. It's not
Yo, did you
Zelda.
like, yo, I mean, obviously it's just a little small detail, but like, if somebody had told you like back in the days of the PS1,
Yeah,
PS2, that like, yeah, you buy one copy of a game and that game is going to work on your handheld and on your console. So instead of you buying two different copies, like the first idea that came to mind is like, wait, handhelds and consoles can play like they'll look the same, more or less the same. Like
yeah,
that's the first thing you're gonna be shocked at. The second thing is gonna be like, oh, and companies are willing to give me two licenses. Yo, where's this future rap, bro? Like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, by the way, you didn't actually have to buy the game. It's like, wait, why? Well, it's on a subscription service. It's like, it's on a subscription service. Oh, like, yeah. Anyway, listen, I think we're very, like, we're in a very privileged sense. We like to,
mm.
like, we don't know how good we have it. Put it that way.
Yeah. Like, look, I
our,
agree.
our parents from the past, like if they had like they had money obviously to buy things, yeah, but they were limited. It was just okay, Ocarina of Time, that's all I could do, this and that. But like us now, it's it's not just Ocarina of Time, it's Steam, it's digital games, it's Game Pass, it's cloud gaming, it's mobile gaming, it's PlayStation, it's crazy discounts, it's stay in your house, don't need to go to the shops and do all these things. Like there's just so like we have way more options. And the only thing that you could probably say is that, we were speaking about this earlier, is that our parents are probably, or not our parents, like our elders, everyone else in in that timeline, they're experiencing um genre defining games, like these titles, like I don't think anyone can replicate really the feeling of playing Mario 64, Final Fantasy 7, Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye for the first time. I think the only games that comes to my mind to replicate those kind of experiences was probably a Mass Effect, because Mass Effect was the first game I played where I had to make I can make my own decisions. I was like, wait, games like this exist? I can pick, and I know myself wasn't the first to do it, but for me, that was my first time ever seeing a game that allowed me to do that. So I was like, Jesus Christ, I can pick what I want, and I have my own squad, and I'm the leader, and I can make decisions, and I can be an app. Like that was like fundamentally crazy. Skyrim was the first game I played where I was like, wait, I can go anywhere I want and do anything I want. It was like, yeah, I was like, that's crazy. You know, I don't think, and ever since then, no other game has really done that. So yeah,
So where I disagree with you is that or like I think
disagree with
that
me.
yeah, I
Cool.
do disagree with you. Like the thing is, excess also does something. It changes your appreciation of things. I'll give you an example, like with the streaming, a form of streaming that is popular and mainstream. I don't appreciate series and movies like I did before Netflix, before we had all these streaming services. I don't think Netflix will ever replace the experience of going to a video shop and walking around with your friends trying to pick a movie for the weekend. I don't think streaming will ever replace the feeling of watching Heroes for the first time, which is like I'm sure it was on cable in America, or watching Prison Break, and that being the series that you had to look forward to. I feel that abundance can also create or devalue things. And I feel that, like, yes, we are incredibly privileged to have access to all these things and all these different ways to consume entertainment. But I think by that virtue of that access, we've also lost a lot of the appreciation for that. Same with games. Like, I feel that, with subscription services, now you can access games easily. I don't have the same sort of attachment I did with games. Whereas back in the day, I remember when I my first console that I bought with my own money was a PS2. I finished almost every one of those games that I bought, especially early on in the PS2's library, simply because of the fact that I paid I think it was like what $50 back then. Yeah, I think it was about 50 to $60 back then for a game, and I made sure that I finished it, and I only focused on just playing that game. I think when you introduce multiple options, a lot of people get paralysis, by choosing just too many options out there. So there's a give and take. I don't think it's. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying from my experience, because I'm not growing up now. The reason I appreciate that stuff so much more is because how rare it was, how unique it was, and uh, those feelings that I got with games back then is not the feelings I get now because of things like ease of access and about like multiple different millions of different choices. Um, I think yeah, it does take away from some of it. It's we're lucky, but at the same time, I think it robs you of that appreciation. Same with like for instance things like consoles. I get why people don't get consoles now, but back in the day, it was tied to I would go as far as saying not your identity, but like who it was like that was your choice, and you chose, and because of the fact that consoles were expensive even back then, you were committing to something, you were making a long-term commitment, and that was exciting. So yeah, all I'm saying is basically like yeah, it's just not as exciting to
On a
me.
material point of view, I think you are right. I think things can be seen as not as exciting these days for many different reasons. As you say, um, I think financially as well, when you have a lot more money to buy multiple different things, that's going to play a role. And I think this goes across the board for everything. The first phone I bought with my money, it was exciting, right? I went to the shop, I saved, I picked it up, it was a great experience. Now I don't care. The first TV I purchased, it was great, it was exciting. It was 1080p. I was like, this is fantastic. I can play games. I remember playing Call of Duty on it. Amazing. Now I don't care about buying TVs like that anymore. Some people might even get like the first PC you build, same thing. And then the third one, fourth one, fifth one, you just don't really care as much. So I get what you're saying. I think it happens across the board. Accessibility is, I think there's something else to be said about watching shows at a specific time as well, right? Watching it at like 5 p.m. on a
Correct.
Friday,
Yes.
as opposed
Absolutely.
to just having unlimited access to it. So I do think
100%.
access doesn't devalue um, the product. It doesn't devalue the things even surrounding the product per se, because the product is still the product. Like the art is still the art.
Mhm.
I think what you could maybe say it devalues is the experience that that builds towards the product. I think that experience is like, I'll give you an example. Um, if you want to go to Disneyland, Disneyland is still going to be a 10 out of 10 trip, right? However, is packing the bags, prepping for the trip, going to the airports, getting the airports food, um, getting the taxis to the airport. I'm sorry, to the hotel, showering, putting on your clothes, your flip flops, and then getting to Disneyland and seeing it is the journey part of the experience, because Disneyland is always going to be there. Like your neighbor, the guy who lives beside Disneyland, he doesn't feel that, right? But and he might go there like once or twice or three times, and it is what it is. But you who's traveling there, that is part of the experience. So if we could teleport right now to Disneyland, Disneyland is still a 10 out of 10, but we miss out on all these little extra details that forms part of the whole story and the experience. You know,
Mhm.
there was an interview with I think it was Ed Frice, and he was doing it with um, the guy from not Circle Podcast, Expansion Pass, and he was saying how when he went to Japan to do these negotiations with these companies, like Japan was crazy. He was like, it was so futuristic. It was so, it was the epicenter of video games. It was everything, and people didn't understand him. They all saw him. They touched his hair, like, oh, white man. Like for him, the experience was, was something unique. And in the interview, from what I got, he's kind of saying like we kind of lost that because everything is now very homogenized. Everybody has access to everything. You have access to all the animes. You have access to all the Japanese games. Like here's a gaming example. Back then, Japanese games would release only in Japan for some time, and you, as a North American or African or European, Australian, you'd have to wait. And or the only thing you couldn't go on the internet to see it, but what you could do is go to the shop, buy a magazine from Edge or Nintendo Life or whatever it is, and see the pictures, see this, like, see what they're saying, and you could just like hope for this game because all you had were the screenshots. Now, these Japanese games come out everywhere they want. Not only that, but we have YouTube, so we can see everything. We can watch everything. You know, is that better than before? I don't know. Like you're right, accessibility has changed. Um, the environment around how we consume products hasn't changed the product itself. The product is still what the product is, but that surrounding part, how important is it? I guess that's the subjective question. Sorry for the freaking rant. God damn.
No, look, I agree with you. Again, I just think it changes like how we appreciate things. Sorry, like, just before we continue that. So, guys, if you just joined us, welcome in. Glad to have you. If it's your first time here, please hit the like and subscribe button. So yeah, no, I just think it's like how we appreciate things changes with access. Like for me, again, like I think you're absolutely right about your Disney experience. Like I remember, like the one thing that people get wrong is that we didn't have access to games as kids coming up. We did. Like again, similar to going to like Blockbuster or the video store was such a crucial part of growing up. Every weekend started with, oh cool, part of the journey was you get your popcorn, you get your snacks, your pizza. Then we walk down to the video store, and then we're gonna pick a movie, and then we're gonna because of the fact that these consoles were so expensive, you'd be likely to have a friend that has a PlayStation or a Sega Saturn or whatever. If they do, then you just go down and just you hire the games instead of hiring the console. But you could even hire the console back then. So you would hire then like your 2 3 games. You'd get a deep game that is going to last you hours, and you're going to keep passing the controller around, and you'd get like a multiplayer thing, like a street, like a Taken or a Street Fighter. that you're just gonna use in between, when you're taking breaks from the main game. And that was like those experiences lasted up until 3 o'clock in the morning, and though that was the best multiplayer, better than any online thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Those memories are like entrenched in my in my DNA. I remember trying to finish Metal Gear Solid 2 without a memory card. How and again, this was we were trying to finish Metal Gear Solid 2 without a memory card on a hired PlayStation. So we had to make sure that we finished the game. We couldn't shut off the system. Um, One of the greatest gaming memories I ever had. And then, of course, because the game starts to fuck with you after a while if you've been playing for too long without switching it off. It starts to malfunction, and then the in-game characters start to ask you if you don't need a break. Uh, so yeah, like memories like that you can recreate today. For me, anyway.
Like I remember playing Sonic as well, right? Same thing. I was like, I ain't got no card, so I need to finish this game now. So that's a true thing right there. Listen, if I wanted to play games with my friends, just like you said, we had to go to yeah, I had to go to his house, he had to come to my house, then we could not we could then do we could not play online. And there's something lost in co-op play, in multiplayer kind of playing in the house together where you can communicate. And I think what we should say is accessibility, even from just the internet in general, has allowed us to given us the tools to communicate with everyone on a global scale, but at the same time, it's made us feel so much more alone in different aspects from a human touch point of view. Um, Accessibility wise, if it didn't exist, I would have probably never met you. Now, I guess you could argue, I've not met you, but like spoken to you. But I guess you could argue that, like, well, maybe on the forum in the early 2000s, we could have met each other there and, whatever. But, playing games together with great internet, all that kind of stuff, that's a very different ball game. It's certainly a subjective, like, talking point. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but I think but part of me wonders, is this just par for course? Did everyone else feel the same way? Like back in the days, before even like our time, did they look at the things that we were doing now when it comes to gaming, or playing Call of Duty 4 and playing multiplayer games? I don't know, like just different aspects. Like, do they look at things as well and say like, oh, like we miss going to the arcades, for example? Like, yeah, okay, you're playing NES, with your friends and whatever, your family in the house, but guys, do you guys know how it feels like to ask for money and have like 10 pounds, 10 euros? So you only have 10 games you can play in the arcade, and at the same time you also got to buy maybe drinks and food, so you got to like make a sacrifice. Like, what is it? And if you're playing that Dance Revolution game or that Tekken game and you lose that round, there is a consequence there, because that's your €1 gone. So you actually have to make sure you win. So now you're playing more strategic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that is an experience in itself that we never really got to experience because we could play games in the house. So I wonder, like, do the elder guys as well think the exact same way? They're like, oh, you guys are missing out big time.
Yeah, and again, it's not like one is better than the other. It's just a matter of like, that was my foundational experiences. That those are the things that ingrained me to gaming and made it such a crucial part of my life that even in like my retirement age, I'm still probably going to be gaming. And it's because of those experiences, all those formative experiences that I had with video games. I still remember, like, aside from consoles, I still remember the arcades, dude. And what an awesome experience that was. And like how you looked forward to going to the arcade with your friends, and you spent the whole day there until you ran out of all your quarters or your tokens or whatever you guys used in your country. So, but it was such a like, again, like I've got such a vivid memory of those times. And yeah, man, like I'm sure that today's like peeps have their own memories, that are all made online. But it's a very different type of experience. But like to your point, like you have way more access today to so many different ways to game. Um, yeah, so it's a different culture. It's a very, very different, culture today than it was back in the day. But the cool thing about gaming is that, look, regardless of where you are and where you're doing it, whether it's on Steam or you're still on console, it still brings people together. It still creates communities. And I still say that out of any community, or fandom, there is no fandom as I would say not vocal, but like as strong as video game or gamers in general. In terms of being opinionated, in terms of actually being super active online. I mean, the things I've seen gamers do, it still amazes me. People playing like the same game. Like there was a video that I watched where a guy actually played the reactor level of Final Fantasy VII for almost 6 months to see how long. I can't remember the record that they were trying to break. Um, and I just like people just doing outrageous things like that you typically would not expect. It's some of the most dedicated people in any like what you call it, any industry. You're lucky to have fans that follow your product like gamers do.
Do you think do you think that's a good thing in itself in comparison to what we get in like in literature and movies or
I
TV
do
shows
think
to an
so.
extent?
Look, I'm more for like I think again it depends on what you're into or like what's important to you. But for me, I do think so because the thing that makes gaming different from all those other mediums is because gamers, you know, either through cooperation or by force, shape the gaming industry. Being a vocal gamer changes the industry. It has an impact on the industry. I mean, like gamers are the same guys that once voted for EA as the worst corporate, which is again that is something that is a like look. Is it exaggerated? Absolutely, it's not reflective of the real world, but it's reflective of how important gaming is to those people. Nobody else does that. Nobody else is that vocal about an interest that they have.
I think
Um,
there's like that's I think that is a very good point. That as a collective, I think where that might have a like the flip side of that to me would be when when I think about like this the literature like space industry, like like let's say like sci-fi. It's sci-fi people or people within sci-fi for specific books. That could be the Pandora Star, the Expanse. It is the specific fans that are critical of those products, and you don't get these outside influences or casuals or the modern audience or whatever people want to call them that actually influence these things because it's the hardcore within the hardcore. Whereas with gaming, it seems like well, there's people who are interested. Like somebody out there could not be interested in replaced as a game, but in gaming, it seems like these people are gonna be like, well, replace is I don't like replace because of X Y Z, but it's like but replace isn't meant for you in the first place. So you have this like because you have this overreaching group. I think that overreaching group can influences that they really shouldn't be able to influence. If you like, if you're a Bethesda fan, I think Bethesda needs to listen to you. But what happens is you're gonna have non-Bethesda fans start talking, start saying, "Do this, do that, do this." Whereas if you were, for example, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, that's not happening. You're not getting fans from different genres or fans who are just like books or whatever it is talking about Game of Thrones. They'll just be like, "Oh, well, that's not for me. I'm going somewhere else." So, to me, that's the flip side of it that makes it negative. Oh, and also, can you rewind this whole thing back? Like, there's this. This is where I am in the game. I don't want to see spoilers. But yeah,
uh,
but do you, what do you think of that? Like my statement there that you have these other people who can influence specific genres or specific games.
yeah, no, I think that's part of the course. And the reason why those people have that influence is because the gatekeepers in gaming allowed them to have that influence. Case in point, Grams would have not had the influence that he did if gamers didn't sort of like a lot of these guys, and I know you talk about the grifters that are able to influence gaming today. The reason that the grifters have jumped onto that is the same is because they realize that, oh shit, this is an active market. It's not a passive market. And this is a market where the people want to see, um how can I say, it's not one way, like people are just happy to, like, to your point, to just keep it going. Like there's a huge part of gaming, as much as there's positive, cool, people or whatever, there's also a huge part of it that's toxic, and that's not from the outside, that's from within. There's a lot of gamers that are toxic by nature, and this is the if you've ever been in any multiplayer lobby, you know this. You know that there's a lot of guys that just like conflict in gaming, and the only reason that these grifters have been able to gain a foothold into gaming is because of that toxic element of gaming. But it's part of the community. You take it as just like you would take all the good stuff with it. That's what comes with it. What I'm saying to you is that these people are not outsiders, even if they are they are outsiders, but the reason that they have a voice is because that voice still speaks to a certain segmentation of gaming. Otherwise, they would not be part of this conversation, because casuals don't care about this stuff. It's mostly hardcore gamers that care about this stuff. And for the longest time, there's a segmentation of the hardcore audience that felt like, for some reason, they were being, for the lack of a better word, replaced in gaming. Same shit, same fucking culture war bullshit that's been going on for a while now, especially in America. And those people are the ones that actually elevated the likes of these, these the grums and all these type of
Well, I'll say this, like, not to really cut you off, but I wasn't even really talking about these people per se. I was talking about more like just in general. So, for example, Crimson Desert can be a game that um that it has its audience, but even like people who are lefty, righty, whatever the hell you want to call it, some people might just hate on it and just be like, no, do it this way, give it a story. Like they put pressure on the title. An example that I was thinking of that I just kind of slipped my mind. Damn, I can't remember it now. But I had an example of a title that that's just about people just wanting it to change and people having an influence on it. Oh yeah, sorry, JRPG games. Like back in the days, JRPG games, you could see the Western media like talk down on it. They they did this, they said that. You have to change for me because I want you to change, and I don't like turn-based games. And it's like nobody buys a sci-fi book and says, where's the fantasy? No one buys a romance book and says, where's the action? Like the people who it's for stay within their space. But it seems like
Can
gaming
you give me an
is
example of this?
yeah, okay. Wait, example, like, what do you mean?
Can you give me an example of, like, the whatchamacallit, this audience that you're referring to, like a game, like give me a game where, like, an audience that's not the main
Okay,
group that plays the game had an issue with the
just off the
game.
top of my head, but Bethesda games are one. So Bethesda
Yeah.
games is a classic example of there are people out there who want them to change the engine, want them to make it more like this, do it more like this. And I've spoken to Bethesda fans about like, well, I think they should do it like this, whatever it is. And their response is, this is Mass Effect, bro. Like, go somewhere else. I don't think that there's many other like mediums like literature, for example, where people are as demanding, saying like, well, Harry Potter needs to do this. It needs to go from a teen to this. Or I'm not gonna
Yeah,
like
but, like, I mean, the only time the only time that matters is like is if the Bethesda fans are actually have issues. Otherwise, you, again, like in gaming, you can have all the opinions. You could hate something and you could be vocal about why you hate it. It's not gonna change how that thing, or it's not gonna impact that thing, if the core audience is still happy with the experience.
no, but I think what I'm really getting at, yeah, I get that. I think what I'm really getting at here is that like I don't think any other audience speaks on genres or titles that they have no interest in as much as gamers do.
Yeah,
I
but
think
that's what I said to you, is that like the problem with the flip side of gamers being the most vocal audience out there is that a lot of them are also toxic.
yeah, but like, see, I don't even think like I don't know how we call that toxic, right? I mean, you could call it that, but I think it's
A
more to
lot of
do
it
with
is toxic in the sense that, like, to your point, the moment I start, like, I know that this has got nothing, like the moment, like, for instance, I go hate on Dustborn, knowing that Dustborn is not made for me, and I go out of my way to hate on, you know, the developers and whatever, like, that is toxic. Like, why? Just to your point, keep it moving. But
I
again, to
think,
me,
but we
as,
see, I think it'd be more like to an extent. Let's say Hellblade 2, right? Like, if there's a Hellblade book, do you need people who are going to talk about Hellblade are the actual fans of Hellblade? Whereas I think in the gaming community, everyone's going to talk about how crap it is.
well, the
And I
reason,
don't know if that happens across the board in literature.
no, because in literature you read the book. On in gaming you have a library. Like, anyone that's talking on this tie has 60 games, they probably own the game anyway. Like, in literature you don't buy books that you don't care about. In gaming you buy anything that's gaming, you buy several different genres. Like, again, like a lot of, like, with films, I think films come a little bit closer.
Yeah, films
But
do
then
come closer.
again,
Yeah,
I don't think films really have, very few people you find that, like, you have, like, you know, cinephiles, real cinephiles today. You have people that like Marvel movies and they like everything that Marvel makes.
but see, I think the cinephile people do exist, and I think there's people out like they do exist because I think there's a Reddit page and there's a guy that he made a comment some time ago and he's like, oh, I see why everybody here hates Critical Drinker. And it's like, you hate it because the truth is he's not actually reviewing films, he's just reviewing Marvel films, which are just casual films. That's number one. Number two, you think he's not reviewing these shows based on merit, he's just reviewing them based on like DEI and stuff. Number
Yeah.
three, the things he complains about are forced. Some of them are legit, but some of them are forced. I was like, yep, pretty much. Like, if he was actually like, if a movie came out and it was genuinely bad in different aspects,
Mhm.
yeah, they would accept him. They're like, yeah, cool, grand. But they're like, no, you're not actually not a film guy. Like, you're lying. You're a Trojan. So I feel like it's the same thing with it's this tourist statement, right? Like, Loke is a Metal Gear Solid fan, right? So and that's his back, and he's that fan. He like, if a Metal Gear Solid book was out there, Loke will be, reading it, and it's for the Metal Gear Solid book readers. But Metal Gear Solid game comes out, and it's gonna have like 10 million comments. The game ain't gonna sell 10 million. I'm just speaking off the cuff here. But it's like, yo, but where's the 10 million comments coming from? It's coming because gamers in general are just gonna comment on it and be like, huh,
Yeah.
too much movies, too much this. Oh, it sucks. Oh, the comeback could have been better. Everyone's gonna have a critique, but in literature, no one's doing that at all. It feels like
Yeah.
everyone's just more mature. They're like, well, it's not for me, so why am I gonna comment on it?
I mean, like, that's one way of looking at it. I like that vocality of gamers to be able to, because again, it's your like, this is what I always say, is that, like, if the medium allows you to do that, why not? Why not? Like, for me, I always say that, like, I would rather encourage discourse than just have no discourse. That vocality, there is benefits to it, but there's also where I sort of like get annoyed is when people now start doing things like sending, and again, I think this is also overblown, and I think a lot of people just use this as a scapegoat, But like, when people start doing shit like, sending, threatening shit, and death threats, which is like a common thing now on social media. But that's where, to me, it really becomes excessive. That's where I talk about it being toxic. But people hating on something, it's your right to do so, man. And in gaming, the thing about gaming, again, going back to, like, in cinema, you watch everything, but you don't spend $70 on something that you're going to watch. And you don't interact the way that we do with platforms like Steam and PlayStation and Xbox. Hence, you have such a huge overlap of people commenting on different genres, different games. Because at some point in time, they've had some sort of, like, uh, what's the word? Interaction with said product. Whether it's a superficial interaction with the product or bought the product,
So I don't see anything wrong with that. I encourage that, and I think it's one of the things that sets games apart in terms of as a community.
No,
Is
it
I love
definitely
the fact
sets it
that they've
apart.
also that
I just
there's
don't know if that's a good thing. Like I think about like Stellar Blade as well, for example, and the first thing that comes to my mind is like, well, Stellar Blade knows its audience. So why all these random people who have no intention of playing Stellar Blade talking about Stellar Blade, number one, and number two, they're dropping reviews on it, and the reviews are like saying stuff like, "Oh, not enough, maybe women, not enough."
yeah,
Like,
but like wait,
hmm,
who's this? Are you talking about? Because again, this happens because Stellar Blade, there was no one in my opinion within the gaming audience that had anything negative to say about it. The people that had something negative to say about it was the gaming media
no,
more
no,
than
yeah,
anything.
yeah. So my point is actually like twofold. It's the media and the fans. Like I could give an example of like the Dustborn version or whatever it is. So I'm just giving an example of like Stellar Blade knows what it's for. So I'll give an example even what Jason Schreier did with that game, the one with the witch with the big chest or whatever. Like that's an example of like him. I'm like, but bro, this ain't for you. Like, like if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff, focus on that, bro. Like, I don't know why you reading romance or sci-fi. Like, it ain't for you. And the fact that he was like, I'm gonna critique it to try to make it not exist. I think that happens on a journalistic level and it happens on a gaming level. And my point is, why is like, mind your business. Don't critique Stellar Blade because it's a game that's not meant for you. Because the critique is basically saying this needs to be for me, but not every game is for you. So why is there a critique? I don't read
So
a
again,
romance book and
so,
say this should be for me. I just leave it the way it is.
so you only critique things that are for you. Is that the argument?
No. I critique. Wait, let me rephrase this in a better way. Okay. If a if a title or a game is marketed for me, aka like my audience, whatever that is, let's say that to be for argument's sake, let's say Mass Effect or whatever it is, I will purchase the product and review, critique, whatever it is, blah 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 blah. However, I look at this game called Stellar Blade, and it is not for me. It clearly they didn't make this game with me in mind. So my point is, any critique I give of this game would change the game from what it's meant to be and will change the game from what its core audience expects it to be. So why am I even critiquing it? Like why am I
Right.
demanding it changes when it's not meant for me in the first place? I know it's not meant for me, so why?
Yeah.
It's almost like I'll give an example of like this is gonna be away from gaming now, but I'll give an example of like Batman. So I went to go see Batman with someone before. This was the one with Robert Pattinson. I loved that movie. I enjoyed it so much. And the person I went to go see, where we went to like a different bar, and she said, somebody asked, "Oh, what'd you guys go see?" We're like, "Oh, we're gonna go see Batman." We're like, "Oh, what'd you think?" I was like, "It was amazing." And she said, "Oh, it was terrible." She was like, "Oh, the women weren't like this enough. They need to be stronger and better, give them more screen time. And then the guy gets the girl in the end and all these things." And she basically wanted to be more of a feminist movie. I was thinking to myself, like, Batman's not a feminist movie. She was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Well, they need to make it more feminist." And I said, "Yeah, but I think it's a 10 out of 10. Well, no, for argument's sake, it's a 10 out of 10, but like, I think it's probably like a 9. I think it's a 10 out of 10 movie. And they made it for me, and the chances are, because you're someone I'm dating, I'll bring you along with me. In the same way how Nintendo makes Mario for kids, and the parents would take it for the kids, right? That's just what it is. If they make it more like what you want it to be, well, now it's going to be a 7 out of 10 movie. And then the point is, I'm going to watch it, I'm going to hate it. So I'm going to go watch the sequel because I hate it. And the truth is, you're not going to go watch it too, because a 7 out of 10 movie that is half feminist isn't really for you. So in your goal to please everybody, you've pleased no one. And now you've just lost everybody. So why appeal to her? Just focus on me. And I look at her and I'm like, we don't need your comment. Go watch Barbie. Go watch like any other show that is meant for you and your like. Because I don't look at Barbie and say, "Yo, where the action scenes at? Why isn't Ken banging all these Barbies?" I don't say these things because it's not meant for me in the first place. So I'm trying. So what I guess what I'm trying to say is like there's these like critiques that I see, and I'm like, yeah, but the title isn't meant for you. Like Startup Blade is, you could say, Guno kind of game. Like it has its audience. The idea that I would look at this title and say, no, make the story like Mass Effect with deep characters. So I want you to spend an extra 30 minutes writing a story. Make the art style a little bit more realistic. All these portions, reduce them as well. All this fan service stuff, reduce it. Keep reducing it. Oh, and make the combats. I give it guns as well because I like guns. Like the game's not the game anymore.
Yeah,
so
but
I guess,
okay.
I guess that's just my point.
The only thing I'm saying, like I hear, is that you keep saying that like you're trying to change the game into something it's not, and I get that. Like in our community, again, going back to like just how diverse we are in terms of opinions. You know Anita Sarkeesian, right?
Sorry, say that again.
You are aware of Anita Sarkeesian.
Yep.
And you are aware like she was part of female feminist frequency. She's the one that came in and said games like Super Mario are sexist, etc., 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 etc. All this shit. She started like a whole movement, and this was around Gamergate 2 and all that stuff that happened. Right? You're aware of all that stuff. Do you think that stuff was negative or positive for gaming?
I think if you can critique specific things, okay, let me give the correct answer and I'll expand on it. I think mind your business. However, the qualifier here is that like if I identify something in the industry, this could be music, could be anything that is actually a problem, and maybe should be illegal or whatever it is, and it's based in your culture, not someone else's culture, then I think you, regardless if it's your genre or not, you can say something. Like for example, if you're watching maybe a TV show and the TV show is very they're doing like bad things that it's maybe like they shouldn't be, like things that you might consider like illegal or should be like that's very problematic, not just from an industry point of view but from a social point of view, like whatever that may be. I don't want to say certain things that might be too gruesome for YouTube. I think you can make like a fair critique there, but if the critique is not, you just have to change the product to fit you, my response is, well, go buy your own product. Go make your own product. I'll give you an example of Lara Croft. Like, Lara Croft was created in a specific way. She has a specific audience. The idea that like someone wants to change how she looks, how she plays, etc., etc., etc. It's like, no, but just like, can you go away and just go talk about something else? I don't know if you know what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm over speaking here.
No, I hear I understand like where you're coming from with what you're saying, but I just want you to go back to that whole Anita Sarkeesian point. Do you think her commentary has a place in gaming? Basically, is what I'm asking.
No. So the thing about Anita is I don't know the full story here, but from I think from what you let me just kind of lean towards your side of things as like how it happened or whatever it is. If she's saying
she's just a feminist, I could give you the cliff notes. She's a feminist that believed that gaming inherently is sexist.
Okay, but so I would say here is like, okay, well, what examples would you give? So here's a very good, wait, hold on. Here's a very good example that I saw. She went to Stephen Kohlberg and she was like, oh, some games allow you to RA, and Stephen Kohlberg asked her like, what game is that? She's like, oh, I don't really want to say the names, And he was like, why? Like, I mean, if the game is doing that, we should name them and shame them. She's like, oh, I don't want to go. She's like, no, name them. She goes, well, games like GTA. And she's like, GTA allows you to And she kept quiet. So it was a lie. And I'm just like, so like, what is a genuine critique here? Is a genuine critique that like, well, you're allowed to beat up anybody in the game, and some people might go and talk to like a worker of pleasure and
No.
then
So like,
beat them up. It's like, yeah, but the game has to beat up anybody, so that's just null and
yeah,
void.
but like her whole point was that gaming, in its essence, in its core, is a sexist activity, and a lot of the tropes in gaming are sexist and outdated. Super Mario, like she used, I mean, like the example you're making is very specific, and I'm not aware of that case. She probably did that because she did
Oh, she
misrepresent a
did.
lot of
Yeah, she
things.
did.
But like my thing is, she had a lot of she said a lot of things, like for instance, about like the whole saving the princess thing, that like the fact that that trope still exists, and the fact that heroes in gaming are also like tend to exhibit a lot of like toxic masculine traits. Like this was around the same time when this whole thing, like
Hmm.
this whole movement was starting up. She
Yeah.
was key in sort of like spreading those messages to the point that a lot of studios that made some of
Hmm.
the most iconic games listened to her.
Yeah.
As a result, you have the sort of, there's a reason like Neil Druckmann makes the type of games that he
Hmm.
makes. He was like, she was instrumental in influencing Naughty Dog
Hmm.
to make games like Last of Us,
Hmm.
um, and other studios as well.
Hmm.
I would say, I would go as far as saying people that think like her were very instrumental in getting us where we are now,
Hmm.
where we have less sex appeal in Western games than you would say in Eastern
Hmm.
games. So would you say that that overall was a negative thing? And
Negative, yes.
okay, and would you say that like what she was trying to do, or the message that she was trying to send was one that was bad for gaming, like her, not her
Yes.
intent, but
Yes.
like what she did? So you think
Yes.
her, okay, and you think that she should have just kept quiet and stayed out of gaming?
Yeah, I think what she should have done is literally create an atmosphere for new studios or whatever it is, because I kind of disagree with it. Like I'll just agree for the sake of the conversation, but I do
Mhm.
disagree that like maybe she had like a massive influence, because I do think this lefty thing, you want to call it a woke situation, was always going to happen. Like she wasn't the reason why that happened, so I think that's going to happen
Okay,
across the
cool.
board,
So let's focus on
movies,
that.
whatever.
Okay, so let's not pin it on her. The people
Yeah,
that had that perspective,
yeah,
because again, she doesn't have the power to do everything.
yeah,
But like
hmm,
the people that had that perspective that drove us to where we are now,
yeah.
do you think those people's voices are valid in gaming?
Valid as in,
Should those people be heard because of the fact that they're going against the status quo, which is like, you know what, we like our games this way. We like our heroes macho. We like our girls sexy. Um, and then somebody says no, but like you guys, like your females are what's the word, being objectified in games
oh
and
yeah, okay, yeah. So I get what you're saying now.
tropes.
The voices are valid in a general sense that I think maybe you would agree. From like everyone has an opinion point of view. However, I think the opinion should be dismissed.
Okay, so it shouldn't be
No,
listened
it should be
to.
dismissed in the same way how
So they can
100%.
still say what they want to say, but we can dismiss it, right?
Yeah,
So how are
they
we
should be
supposed to-
dismissed. They should be dismissed. I think if I say anything about Stellar Blade, like, hey, change the tone, change this, change that, I think my opinion should be 100% dismissed.
So like, so by dismissed, do you mean that your opinion should not exist? You should not be able to air that opinion. Your
No,
opinion
no,
should,
no, no, no. So the foundation here that we're just gonna say is like everybody has an opinion. Everybody can say what they want to do online. That's just like the default, right? Whatever it is. However, my critique is I'm critiquing these opinions and saying your opinion is rubbish and garbage, and you should shut the fuck up. That's what I'm saying.
and then I
I,
agree with you.
I am
completely agree.
saying that the Mortal Kombat fans who love Mortal Kombat for what it is, and they were happy and they said, this is what we like. And I'm saying, don't listen to somebody else coming in who's not even a fan saying, well, I think it's too violent, tone it down. I think the character outfits are too this, tone it down. I'm like, no. Go influence a different studio to make a different game that fits your narrative. That's fine.
Exactly.
But leave
So-
these franchises that are established with the established fan base alone. Now, if the creators are like, well, we want to expand and we want to grow, and the way to grow is to do this and do that, then perfect. That's a different situation. I give an example of a game where that makes sense to me. If Guerrilla Games were like, okay, well, we made this game, we've made games with male characters before. We want to make a brand new IP with a female lead. Perfect. That makes 100% sense. And what I'm saying is like, Horizon has these characters. I mean, it has its established audience, which is it's quite diverse, it's quite open. I've been on the subreddit page. It's quite very LGBTQ friendly. Like that audience is that audience, and they love the game for what it is. And I know that audience in the sense that like I've seen the comments, and I know the kind of people that will play that kind of game. What I'm saying is that like you, Usher Social, you or Loke, cannot go to them and then say, well, I mean, give her a gun. Actually, change it to a male protagonist. Oh, make her more feminine. Oh, make her look this way. Make her be more like vulnerable. I'm telling you guys to shut the fuck up and like get away. You can voice it, but please leave this franchise guy, leave these guys alone. In the same way, I'm saying they should have left Lara Croft alone as well.
So my thing is, okay, so like, are you saying that they're not allowed to say it, or are you saying they can say it but we can just ignore them?
No, yeah, I'm saying they can say it. Like everyone can say anything. I'm just saying that they should shut the fuck up. In the same way, like
no, dude. There's a difference between saying that you could say something and saying you should shut the fuck up. That's what I'm trying to establish.
No.
Are they allowed to have the opinion?
Yeah. Like in the same way how I said,
we're in agreement here.
Yeah. But example, in the same way how I said, yeah, anyone can review a game. However, a game with less than 1 hour is garbage review.
Exactly. So if you are well informed about the genre or about whatever the game, if to you want a detailed, informed perspective, you will see straight through that. It's not going to affect or impact you. But the guy still said what he said. And I think, like, for me, I encourage that. Like, I encourage the Anita. I think Anita Sarkeesian's interference in gaming has made gaming. It has actually, I'll say this, it has moved us. It's actually, because for me, she tested gaming. She tested, like, for instance, I think not just her, but like what happened in the last, I would say, decade or so has tested gaming, and gaming as a community has changed. In some aspects, it's matured, and in some aspects, it's regressed. But we are in a very different place than we were, I would say, a decade ago, which to me is good. It's positive. It's part of growth. I'll say that we've grown as a gaming community, and part of that growth has sort of said, okay, we're not a monolith. There's people that have different interests. There are people that want to see more progressive games. There are people that want to see more games that lean into fan service. There are people that want to see a lot of different types of outputs when it comes to gaming. Hence, we have such a strong indie spirit going in gaming. So I would have said that I don't want Anita to come into gaming. Unlike the people that hate her, who would have said, you know what, let her voice be suppressed. I'm saying that even if I disagree with people, I would never want their voices to be suppressed. Same in gaming, which is what I love about gaming, is that people are vocal about things that are not necessarily for them or being built specifically for them. But what that does, it makes that community re-examine what's important to them. And if whatever is important to that community remains the same, then said product doesn't change. The only time it changes is two things happen. The community supports the product that goes against what they like, and that game, or the influx of casuals takes over that franchise. Yo, Fuzzy, welcome in. Glad to have you. So what I'm saying is that people should continue to have voices, but it will never, like, for instance, if I don't like Starfield and Bethesda fans love Starfield, it's not going to change the outcome for Starfield. Starfield's still going to be successful. But I can still have my opinion that I think the game is trash, because I'm a graphics person. I play PlayStation games and I prefer games with shiny graphics. It's not going to change the price of bread for Bethesda fans and Bethesda. So I'm saying that have all the opinions that you want. It will not materially move the needle for the experience that the core has with the game.
Fuzzy, what's up? I sent a message to what me and Asha were talking about as he was talking, but primarily I think we're talking about, like, because I think we're talking about some news, but last week we obviously spoke about like a different category, like different section altogether. But anyways, we're talking about, I was saying how gaming is different from literature and movies to an extent, in the sense that if you're a sci-fi fan, you're gonna see sci-fi people focus on specific books and genres, and fans of that will stay within that space. I'm not gonna go off and start critiquing books in general or other kind of aspects. Whereas in gaming, it seems like we're all very unified, even though titles are not meant for us. We have opinions on that title. So an example could be, Game of Thrones fans of the books are Game of Thrones fans of the books, and they're not really talking about the Witcher books. They're not really talking about, Lord of the Rings books. They're not really. They kind of just focus on the books that they like, and they kind of overall focus on the genre of fantasy. Whereas in gaming, you have fans of like sci-fi or whatever it is, but like gamers in general will comment on that title for good or for bad. So Stellar Blade will come out, and we know it's niche. It's not a niche, but we know who it's for. We know who the Expanse is for. But you're gonna have all these random gamers like commenting on Stellar Blade, change this, do it this way, do it that way, even though they're not the actual core audience. And I was saying, like, Asha was saying, like, this is something that's a feature of gaming, and I was saying for good and for bad. Like, I think that this is the bad side of it, where people who shouldn't be involved in talking about this thing because they're not the core fans or the core audience are going to have an opinion on this, and are going to start talking crap. Now, can they have these opinions? Of course they can. But I'm just saying, like, I just wish someone would just shut the fuck up sometimes. But anyways, we're just going back and forth. There's no real defined conversation. But what you were saying, Asha, about Anna stepping in, I mean, I could have said the same thing as you there. I was just saying no from an argument point of view to kind of keep the conversation going. But I'm sure there were some things that she touched on that was probably bad, which we might even say are, sexist, etc., etc. But the overall concept was like a general view was that if things are being changed for a specific core audience, and it's not problematic, it's just, well, I just don't like the fact that it doesn't fit my ideology, then I'm saying no, like, move on. Now, if it happens naturally due to whatever it may be, or if it's something that's going to happen naturally in general, like if it happens naturally or something that's maybe a little bit more pushed, I'm fine with that overall. But in general, I would say stick within your base.
Yeah, but like the only thing, like, I just don't think you're answering or you're committing to is, are you saying people should be allowed to voice their opinions, or are you saying people should not voice their opinions?
I think those are two different points.
No.
To be clear, you said should people be allowed?
Yes. If you don't like Starfield,
wait, hold on. Wait. You said people should be allowed, and then the next statement was, people should not voice their opinions. People are allowed to voice their opinions.
So okay, so I'm struggling to understand. So
okay. Ask me the direct question.
Okay, so what is it? Because what I'm trying to understand, is, what are you saying about people talking on games that they don't play or franchises that they're not invested in?
Okay, so the first point I'm saying, I'll make this one real quick, is that to me it seems like in the gaming space it's a little bit more unique than the other mediums, simply because someone who likes the Wheel of Time books focuses on the Wheel of Time books, and maybe in an overreaching sense, fantasy as a whole. Whereas in gaming, you have people who are not focused on maybe a specific game, aka Final Fantasy. And what they'll do is they'll comment on Final Fantasy, they'll comment on RPGs as a whole, but they'll comment on every other game as well. And they have these opinions, and it's like it's more unified. You could find somebody who's commenting on every single game, probably like releasing, but you're not gonna find somebody who likes the Wheel of Time commenting on every single like fantasy book releasing.
Correct.
So
what I'm asking you, so what I'm asking you is that I get you saying it's different, and I agree with you. It's very, very different in terms of audience. And we got into a little bit of that in the beginning as to like why that is. So what I'm saying to you, so what are you proposing here? What are you saying and should happen?
No, yeah. So the question you're probably asking me is like, do I prefer the gaming side of things where everyone just like talks about everything and comments on everything and
No. I'm
everyone
not
is
asking
trying to
what you
influence things,
prefer.
or do I prefer if the gaming side of things became like the book side of things?
Yeah, no, but like no. Like no, that's not what I'm asking. Like I'm asking you what, because again, like I know what you prefer. You would like things to be like the book side of things. But I'm saying that's not gonna happen. We are in a reality where this is how gamers are. I'm saying, do you have a proposal? What are you saying should happen? Like what is
I have no proposal. I think that's
okay,
where
you're just
we're getting
saying,
stuff.
you're just making
I'm
observation.
making an observation.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. Then you
Yeah,
don't.
I'm
Then
making an
then
observation.
completely
If
relevant.
you were to ask me what my preference is, I think without thinking about it too much about like potential consequences or whatever it is, I would say things should be more like the literature side of things.
Okay. Okay. No, I like. Look, again, that's your outlook. Like, I think I like the way that how dynamic conversation is in gaming, and I don't think that should change. I appreciate the fact that people have opinions about everything in gaming. Again, they're very vocal audience. It's probably the most vocal audience out there. And again, that comes with good, and it comes with
Do you think, for example, that if we were more on the literature side of things, Final Fantasy doesn't change to be an action adventure game? It stays like an RPG.
No. Again, like a lot of those decisions have nothing to do with opinions. They've got to do with what Square Enix thinks is popular and is going to land amongst the what the kids want to play, inverted commas, what everyone is into. Like those are business decisions, and the business tends to not be informed by what fans think. Very unique instances where that happens, because how businesses look at things is that they know that if you're a Final Fantasy fan, you're going to buy Final Fantasy because Final Fantasy is on the cover of the box. But what they want is they want to get more newer players onto the games. Hence why Final Fantasy has changed so much, is because they're looking at the games that are selling 10 million, 20 million. They're saying, shit, what do those games have in common? They're all action packed. They all look like this.
I get that, and I think you're right. I think there's an alternate situation though, where I think what they do is because everything is a bit more alienated. What they do is they focus more. By default they have to focus more on the RPG base, so they actually look to innovate within the Final Fantasy space. So an example of this would be they might do something different, like Clear Obscure, as opposed to just going full action. So I think
No,
you start to see
but
more
that had nothing to
innovations
do with
in that
opinions again.
specific
Like,
area.
but again, that had nothing to do with opinions. Final Fantasy being the way it is now had nothing to do with, like again, this started back in the PS2 era, going to PS.
No. So I know. Okay, so
Nothing to do
I
with
should agree with what you're saying. I think what I'm trying to say
those.
here is that
Those decisions were made independently by whatchamacallit, by Square, without like. And the reason why, if you look at like why Square did it, is because of the fact that Square is targeting Japanese girls. Like this was the thing with Final Fantasy 12. The reason the protagonist, they went for a less strong protagonist, and they went for like, actually with all Final Fantasy games, if you go back, all of them have these like anime super good looking characters type of thing. The reason that they go for that aesthetic is because of the fact that a lot of these games were targeted at teens, to like early, like early teens to like late early 20s, and a lot of that demographic slowly but surely started to be a growing Japanese female demographic. That is, so a lot of those changes were informed by casuals being absorbed into the Final Fantasy fandom, not fans talking shit online. So, and a lot of franchises again have done exactly the same thing. Is that after a while they ignore the fans, the vocal group, and you know this, and you've said this in the past as well. The vocal group is always gonna buy the thing. What developers do is then they start focusing on the casuals, because that's where the new money's at. That's why the industry changes. That's why genre, like even games, specific games change, because of the fact they're trying to accommodate. Those people are not vocal. Those are not people that have anything to say, but they're the people
that are the majority, and everybody's like, shit, we want a little bit of that money. That is why Final Fantasy is the way it is. That's why Call of Duty is the way it is. That's why many of the franchises that have gone that popular route are the way they are. Is because of the fact that they're trying to capture that mainstream audience. Nothing to do with vocal fans online.
Yeah, so I agree at a core level. I think what I'm saying is that there's a situation where I'm actually going beyond just the whole like, oh, let's focus on literature. When it comes to writing like something like a Game of Thrones, it's very like fantasy, and it's, you know, in the way it is. And I think what I'm trying to what I'm trying to say here is that, like, rather than jump to a different genre, especially because in gaming everything is so monolith, everyone talks about everything. It might even seem easier to do that. Whereas you can't really be a George R.R. Martin and say you're not going to make Game of Thrones into something a little bit more sci-fi. Like, it just wouldn't work, because the sci-fi fans don't know what Game of Thrones is. So you're better off just writing a whole new, creating a whole new IP as a whole, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that, like, within that Final Fantasy space, because everything is so segmented, the RPG fans will not purchase anything else that is not really Final Fantasy or whatever it is, right? So you have to invent a new system and innovate within the turn-based space to appeal. And maybe if you were to go action-orientated, literally every JRPG fan just kind of stops, like, nah, we ain't playing this anymore. So then you lose that user base. I guess I'm kind of maybe looking at it now from like a past perspective. Like, are things better segmented so we don't really get this blending of genres as much, and do we see more innovations within that genre itself? I don't know if I'm making sense.
You're making sense, but again, like, I think that runs away from the like our core discussion. Guys, if you just joined us, welcome in. Glad to have you with us. So we're just talking like this, day-to-day gaming politics BS. So I think, like, where it gets away from the pointer is the fact that, like, again, all that stuff is not determined by core fans or fans that are vocal online. All that stuff is determined by bottom lines, on and whatchamacallit, and meetings and boardrooms as to how are we going to grow this brand, how are we going to squeeze more money out of this audience. All those decisions are made there. They've got very little to do with what the fandom wants, and that's where books are different. Like, for instance, from games, is because books and movies and shows are marketed and sold very differently in a lot of ways than video games. And even, like, for the fact that, like, the investment that's required from games, I think books come closer when it comes to the investment part, because you still have to put in, hours in a book, whereas entertainment is like, a little bit of a quick chew type of thing. However, games combine both of those things. So how you sell them, how you get longevity out of them, matters. The one core thing in gaming that drives a lot of, like, the decision making is the fact that out of all three of those mediums, games are incredibly difficult to make. So that influences that as well. So what I'm basically saying is that all those decisions are independent of gaming discourse online. Like, there's no amount of the only time that that developers take that seriously is when it starts to hurt their bottom line. It's when the core audience stop buying the game. That's when they're like, oh shit, so we're losing all these people because of the fact we've not been servicing for them for long enough. Sorry, we've not been paying attention to what they want. That's the only time that gamers have an impact on the decisions made in terms of, how the game turns out. The rest of it, any other time, just comes down to how do we grow this? How do we make more money out of it? Nothing to do with gaming discourse.
Fair points. Yeah, I would. I think, yeah, I would agree with that. I do think you're right. Gaming is influenced primarily by budgets. The bigger the budget is, the more you're trying to do. The kind of more you have to appeal to different audiences. And I think maybe gaming can be a bit uniquer. I mean, maybe other genres too, because if you look at movies, like, an action movie will have romance elements, or you have to save that girl, you save that guy. It'll have, horror elements as well. So everything kind of mixes together. And I think where maybe gamers are is that we can see joy in a lot of products because there's a lot of overlap in terms of combat. So, like one example that I was talking about with my friends was that Street Fighter was a genre kind of defining game because it was the first title by accident to give you the combo mechanic. Before that, you just go and just press punch and then punch again and punch. Like that was it. But Street Fighter was like punch, 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 and there was a glitch that actually just do a Shoryuken. So now people are like, oh shit, we can, connect these things. And if there was a mistake, everyone liked it. And then single player games, action single player games, they'll be like, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's, attack, 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 and then let's do like a special ability or whatever it is, like a combo. And because if you like combos, then you probably like fighting games to some extent, and you probably like single player action games to some extent. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of crossover here. So I guess maybe that's where people can get their opinions. Where I want this title to be more like this because there's elements of this title that I like, and and I guess maybe from a literature point of view, there is no visual spectacle. There are no trailers. There's nothing to watch. If you know about a book coming out, it's more likely you're more invested within that space, and you've seen things, you've seen the gameplay on YouTube, you've seen the story on YouTube or whatever it is. So now you have more of a, you could maybe pass your critique more, whereas you don't get that for literature, so you just can't really comment. Like I told you, like there's a new if I told you like there's a new Expanse book, like how would you be able to evaluate it? Like you just can't. Like even on the surface level, there's nothing you can do. All you can do is read the synopsis, and it's like, okay, I guess that's it. Oh, you could look at the book's cover art and be like, oh, it's a ship. This is trash. You know what I mean? So yeah. Anyways, overall,
I summarize it for you.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, are there any interesting characters in it? Any interesting, like the trailer of Mass Effect will tell you more about Mass Effect than a synopsis of the Mass Effect book, for example.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Look, I don't think, like, again, it's one of those situations where I don't think like we're in disagreement. Yeah, I just think we are on very different sides of the
overall, I say you're right. Like, and I think, for example, I haven't fleshed that. Like, if I say things should be more like literature from the space of things, I haven't fleshed out the potential consequences of that. Like, is that actually a good thing or a bad thing? I think there's pros and cons, but is the cons worse? So I haven't fleshed out.
But then again, I think you're looking at this the wrong way. I think you're looking at it from a situation where you're looking at it collectively. Whereas you are absolutely right. There's a lot of communities that function like the literature community within gaming, where it's very curated, it's very gatekeepy, it's just for those people, and those people don't comment on everything and whatever. Those people know what they like, and that's what they talk about, and it's one of those close communities. There are communities like that within gaming. It's part of the diversity of gaming. Like, it's the popular games that get all this sort of like mixed critique and whatever, but there are definitely communities that are curated the same way like you would say a book community works.
True.
So that's the thing about gaming, is that we have all that diversity.
I think the communities that are probably very much like that, even when it comes to popular titles, are probably the CRPG space and the tactical space, like
and the
endless space games and fighting games as well. Probably have a little bit of that.
And indie, I think indie games. There's a lot of indie games that just have there's so many games that just come out of nowhere. I don't even know why, and then this game is all of a sudden number one, and it's selling and you're like, who even knew that this thing existed? But there's an entire community that hyped it up, that made sure that anyone that's interested in that type of experience knows about it. And this is how, for instance, the Souls-like. I think the Souls-like is a great example of that. The Souls-like community is the most single-minded community within gaming. Like, the moment you complain about difficulty, well, this game is not accessible enough, you are going to die by ratio on social media. I don't know
but you see, I think that And it's funny because I think the Souls like community adds to my example and also pushes back against it somewhat, because like my friend, he's been a Souls like guy for like since Dark Souls. Play the Dark Souls games, play the Demon Souls games, and Elden Ring comes out, and he loves it. And he just feels like you have all these extra people, who are coming in like tourists basically. And some of them like, yeah, it's good, but change this, change that. It's too hard, whatever it is. And even though like the people are, grilling these people, like get good, whatever it is, there's a problem though. There's a significant portion of them who are saying, or who are successful in having from software patch certain things. So, for example, they patch a specific boss, and some people they come into a little bit like, the boss is a little bit tricky. But them were thinking like, yeah, but the vast majority of us were not saying patch this. Like, why would you patch? The people who are complaining were casuals who hated
Yeah,
this.
but like, I'll say this, right? Then again, that decision was probably made from a money making perspective on from software's part. And the reason I say this is because every single other whatchamacallit, Souls like clone, or Elden Ring, or Dark Souls clone follows exactly the same formula of the game is going to be hard. So like I think that was from software for some reason. I don't know why they did that. Again, it's because probably as a business they want to grow the audience. They want to grow beyond the Dark Souls audience. But that audience, in terms of like them, like there's no room. Like again, like tell you, like you can go to any discussion with like a Souls like audience. Like there is no overwhelming amount of people speaking or trying to go against the grain. Everyone in those communities is very single minded. Everyone likes, and it's why those games are so successful and that genre has grown so fast, is because everyone is very specific about what they like, and they all support that exact thing that they like. I complain about those games because of the fact that I think Souls like games are literally copy and paste the same thing, just with different art and whatever. The fact that you copy things like, for instance, how you navigate menus in a From Software Souls like game says to me that you guys verbatim just you stole, you copied From Software's homework. However, there's an audience that doesn't care. They will buy it because of the fact it does what they want. And this is why anyone that releases those, if you want your game, if you want to get an audience that's going to buy your game, I say target those guys. If, and again, there's a reason why you see them like in every single PlayStation presentation, etc. Whenever you're making a single player game, your bets are to make it like a Souls like or a rogue like, because those people are so specific about what they like, and they will support you if you do what they like. So basically, what I'm saying is that, like, to me, that feels like a very curated. That's a community that will never, in my opinion, be affected by casuals, because the gatekeeping and the reason they like the games difficult is because it's a form of gatekeeping. They want to keep the casuals away. And if you are from soft, you have to think, okay, cool. Geez, and the problem is with from where FromSoft is now is that that experience of those games have become so popular that they have no choice now. They need to think about transitioning this into a popular franchise, meaning that they're going to have to make concessions that this group doesn't like. But again, it's the company that's going to make the decision, not the fans. The fans have done that by saying, we want this type of game and we'll vote for this type of game. So FromSoft has to now think, okay, shit, we have 10 million of these people that like this, but damn, Elden Ring sold like 30 million or some shit like that there. So there's a lot of other people that liked this because we made it a little bit more accessible in these parts. So now they have to think carefully. What do we do going forward? Again, it's going to be a decision informed by what? Economics.
Yeah, so I overall agree. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Um, yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying there. Like, if you were to ask most Souls like fans, they'll say From Software is the maybe like easiest to play, like from an accessibility point of view.
Correct.
I'm sorry, Elden Ring is the easiest to play, and I think it's done well. It's sold really well. I think this is the issue then becomes like, what if they fall into the same pattern as all these other games, which is, well, now we need to make the next game bigger and better graphics for the PS6, PS7, and now your margins are like, well, on the previous gen console, we sold 20 million and we make 2 billion. Now for the PS6, well, the game doesn't cost 100 million to make. Now it costs 200 million to make. So now our margins are now 15 billion instead. At what point do you start saying like, okay, how do we attract more people, and let's start listening to these other random people and all these people complaining online? But anyways, listen, I get what you're saying. I agree with you. I agree. Let me know.
And like From Software is smart, right? After they made Elden Ring, they went and made what was that mecha game?
I know what you're talking about.
It only sold like, I think, 5 million, but the whole point of making that game was to sort of say to From Software,
Armored Core,
fucking difficult. Like, I wouldn't play that game with somebody else's fucking hands. But like, they were it was literally a nod to the fans. Like, look, we haven't abandoned. We know why we got here, and we still make these. This is still our trademark game. So don't worry that we're going to abandon you for some mainstream audience. And I think to me that was a love letter to their fans, and well played by FromSoft. And I think that's why they've got such a unique place in the industry, and they will continue to sort of cultivate that place in the industry.
Because I love The Witcher 2, and it was such a hard game, good game, and my friend hated it because he thought it was too hard. You had to plan all your missions in advance. And then fast forward to The Witcher 3, and I remember just being like, oh, you nerfed it. You made it easy. You made it accessible. You streamlined everything. And I hated it. And then it sold well. And I was like, I was happy it sold well, but part of me was still like, fuck. Like, now it's casual. And then, obviously, you know how I feel when then, The Witcher 4 is announced or things have been changing. And then these goddamn tourists who have only played The Witcher 3 are now making statements like, oh, it should be like this. And I'm just like, man, like, no. Like, you're not the same. Like, don't talk about The Witcher like this. But anyways,
No, I agree with you. And unfortunately, like, a lot of games are a product, are a victim of their own success, where the game is so successful that you have to make it, you have to sort of, like, to your point, cave into what the and again, it's never the guys online. It's always the audience. It's always the casuals that that just from you went from 10 million, now you've got 20 million people playing your game. And the reason why most casuals buy games is because they talk to someone. It's like, oh, well, is that the hottest game this month? Okay, cool, I'm looking to buy a game. The Witcher. Okay, cool, let's go buy The Witcher. And then all of a sudden you go from having 10 million players to having 20 million players. Now, there's no business that's going to say, well, you know what, we don't mind still selling 10 million after we sold 20 million. Unfortunately, that's the problem with business as a whole. The only people that have done that without compromising any of their core sort of values and how they make games is Rockstar. And I suppose you can say Nintendo as well, but that's a different story. But Rockstar, they've never really compromised the core of how they make their games with the belief that they are trying to reach a bigger audience. For some reason, despite all the other barriers, like for instance, having an M rating, violence, controversial stuff in the game, their games are still super popular. Like, it doesn't put anyone off. In fact, they just grow from release to release. But then again,
I'll agree with you that Rockstar is definitely like GTA games are like that. My only addition to add here is GTA games are the most casual games you'll ever like experience. They're so like commercialized. It's like they're so like my like Splinter Cell was a game that I was playing. My sister never played that. Even Skyrim, even Call of Duty. But there's one game she did play was GTA. Any game that is open world and allows you to just do whatever the hell you want to do. And it's not a game that gives you a sword. It gives that gives you modern mechanics, aka guns, cars. Like, that is a casual game by default. GTA can mask complex storylines within a casual game. like Elden Ring is a game that's a 10-year-old will not pick up because it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be whatever it is. Like no one is really picking up Elden Ring in the casuals. I mean, they are, but like you know what I mean. But GTA is like the most casual game that anyone can just pick up and just have a great time because it's very simple in its execution. In the same way, Mario is a very casual game that anyone can just pick up and play. So, but yeah, but I get what you're saying. They're not like they're not changing standards for anybody. But my argument is like they don't have to change standards because the standard is casual. In fact, you could probably make a claim that it's the hardcore that are probably like, jumping on the casual game. And I know obviously the game didn't start as a casual game. But just like by definition, like GTA is probably the most casual game that I've ever like come across.
And I think there's a lot of truth. It's very accessible, yes. But again, like, yeah, no,
Red Dead Redemption 2 is not as like it is casual. It's like I know a lot of people who play it because it's whatever it is, but it's less casual than GTA because Red Dead Redemption 2 is very intentional with the pacing and with the hunting alligators and like it's slow making a cop. Like it's very like it's a casual game, but it's more of like a realistic. We're gonna make it work for a kind of casual game. Whereas GTA is just like dumb fun, go do whatever the hell you want to do. It's like Saints Row except realistic and much better.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, there's a lot. It's accessible. I wouldn't necessarily say it's casual, but I would say
Like,
GTA is very
yeah,
accessible.
accessible. Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ty, like, I think that was an awesome hour and so in terms of a topic. I think let's just freestyle it. What else do you want to talk about?
I thought you had some questions because I had I was thinking about some, but I thought you had so I like the accessibility question a lot, but I like the indie and the AAA access. Remember we did this topic before, which is what's more important for the industry, AAA or indie or whatever it is. We could freestyle that.
What is it? What's more important for the industry? But I think that's very subjective, though. Like, it would depend. Like, are you saying from what a player's perspective or from a growth business perspective? Because a lot of these like subjects, like the outcome changes drastically based on whose perspective are you taking.
How about this? The industry, it's what it is today because of AAA gaming.
Yeah, no, that's like indie gaming is a fairly new thing, dude. Like indie gaming is as new as the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and Steam being around. That's like the 2010s, the 2015s. There were no indie games before that. Like you were a small studio, but there was nobody making homebrew games, unless of course you were making them on. Back, I suppose, I suppose PC gamers will disagree with me. They'll find this blasphemy because there was always homebrew and shareware games and all that stuff. But in the modern era, indie gaming is a fairly new concept. This is not something that has always existed within the bowels of gaming.
Okay, how about this one? Innovate. We are not gonna get innovative games anymore. Everything would just be a derivative. A derivative of what came before.
So Fuzzy says something important, which I agree with. Xbox Live Arcade basically brought indie games into the masses. Absolutely, Fuzzy. Xbox Live and Steam, I think, were the most instrumental parts of bringing indie into the mainstream and to the focus of gaming consciousness. Sorry, Ty, just repeat what you said.
I agree with Fuzzy actually because indie games weren't really advertised. I didn't really see much of them, but then as time went on, I started to kind of see more of them, get more of the vibe. So I guess there was an discovery element to it that an Xbox Live probably championed that. I think also, I think you could maybe make an argument that the indie games were on the handheld consoles and devices. That was where they were popular, maybe. I mean, Nintendo makes very not cheap games, but lower budget games. So maybe
Nintendo makes expensive pieces of plastic.
It's stable, like, because Capcom, like all these companies like Capcom and whatever, they all didn't like stop making small games. They just put them on the Switch, on the Wii, not the Wii, on the handhelds, the DS, 3DS, whatever it is. And at some point, you started to think like, the 3DS is getting more powerful. Um, Maybe these games will actually work as well on the console. And I think when Nintendo did it really well with the Switch, because obviously once they unified all their titles. They were still releasing some like 2D weak looking kind of games, and they did really well. So yeah. But anyways, that's for the other point. The question I said is, we're not gonna get much more innovative games anymore. We're just gonna get derivatives of what came before. So all this innovation, games that are going to change the way we play, games that are going to wow us based on how the past did, aka Ocarina of Time, aka Mario 64. All that is done. We're finished.
So that's a good question. Like, I don't know what you guys think in chat. Like, do you guys think that? Actually, let me ask this question: what is the last game that actually blew you? Oh, blew you? No, I don't want to know which the last game that blew you. But like, what is the last game that actually blew your mind? Like, you were like, "Fuck!" Like, wow, this is incredible. This is amazing. Like, it's been a minute since I've experienced something that is like this game changing. When is the last time, or what's the last time? What's the last time, Fuzzy, you played a game that made you go through those sort of like motions? Um, so what I would say, Ty, is that like again, like when you talk about innovation and gaming, I would say it depends. Like I would say this, right? I think actually this is one of the easiest things to answer or to address. Is number one, if you're saying that we're not gonna get any more innovative games in the triple A space, I believe you. To your point, using your example or your definition of maturity or a mature market, is that there's two issues: is that it's budgets and in terms of like what's going to be profitable, and everyone is now making games based on like shit. How can I? What is the safest bet for us to have a hit? That creates a very difficult environment for you to be able to do things that are going to move the needle. So in the AAA space, yes, I think there's going to be less of that. I don't think it's going to. It's gone forever. You can never count that out. You always get guys like Kojima. Kojima is still making, you can argue, innovative games. He made a AAA game that nobody would have ever, without the cachet that Hideo Kojima has, and no one was going to invest in Death Stranding, a delivery simulator taking place in the future with hyper realistic graphics. No one was ever going to buy into that. The whole concept of Death Stranding is a small indie game on Steam, but he was able to do that with a quadruple A budget. So there'll always be guys like who have nothing to lose, like a Hideo Kojima in terms of like a cachet in the industry. That said, there's very less of that right now. Everyone is literally almost trying to do the same thing. They're trying to find formulas that are just going to repeat success. However, in the indie space, experimentation is higher than it's ever been. People are trying so many different things, and that's the double A in indie space. So no, innovation will continue in gaming indefinitely. I don't see a point where we reach like a plateau.
I think we're done. AAA space, indie space, double A space, it's all done. It's all just derivatives now. Mature market is here. That's it.
Okay, so what do you mean in indie? Let's start with like. Would you say?
So for example, if I was to, and obviously this is not going to be fair because you're going to think about it, but if I was to ask you, Fuzzy, or anyone who's going to watch this, like, what is a indie game that is innovative, and by innovative I mean can match the levels of innovation that a Super Mario did back in the days, or a Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, a GoldenEye, even maybe to some extent a Halo, a game that came out, and I'm saying that like that level of surprise and shock and awe, it's done.
No, but okay. So I just
so the follow-up question then will be, what indie game has come out in the last 5 years that is innovative?
So I disagree with you. Again, like if you mean there's a difference between originator and innovating. Innovating means that you can innovate on a formula that's old, i.e., the whole Souls thing. There's nothing new about Souls games. Upping the difficulty does not make your game new or innovative. But does not make your game new, but they innovated in terms of how they used difficulty as the core thing to position the game to an audience. So innovation has nothing to do with creating new mechanics or reinventing how people control or move in 3D. Innovation is how do you take, you know where the walls are. How do you, instead of like conventionally interacting with the walls, you do it in a very, very different way. Like you do it in a way that excites your audience, in a way that they experience it like it's brand new. Good example of this is Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead Redemption doesn't do anything that's not been done in games before, but they innovate in such ways that the audience that's used to playing that sort of games knows that they're playing something special or unique. If your definition of innovation is where we invent genres and mechanics, then no, that has not happened since that era. But people were excited when PS2 games came out. They were excited when Metal Gear Solid 2 it went from being a game with blocky polygonal characters to almost, sprites that had like like Solid Snake's model probably has as much polygons as the entire level that you play in Metal Gear Solid. So for me, I factor in all those things when I talk about innovation and driving, things of the industry forward. It's not inventing new mechanics; it's getting people excited about something that they used to. Like it's giving them a way to experience what is familiar in a different way.
So
And I think
I guess
is do
what I'll say is I think Red Dead Redemption is a very very good example. Red Dead Redemption 2, because funny enough, I was talking to my colleague about this today. He's a huge fan and he wants me to play it and all these things. He talks about how the game is real and all this kind of stuff. Red Dead Redemption 2 can be seen as innovative in different aspects. I suppose. I think the question would be: Is is Red Dead Redemption 2 fuzzy to you as well? Is it innovative or is it immersive? And if you want to make an argument that immersion is innovation, I think where I would disagree is that immersion is something that you can, if you throw enough money at it, you can come to reality, right? But I think innovative is something that you're doing that hasn't really been done before, and you're changing how something should work in theory or whatever you want to call it. So I think I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is more immersive than innovative. In the same way how I think when GTA
okay.
comes out, whatever Rockstar decides to do, it might be crazy, it might not be crazy. This is a game that's costing whatever 3 billion to make. Are they gonna do things that's gonna change how we play games? Or because that to me would be innovative. But if they're just gonna make things feel more real. So for example, here's an example of this, yeah. In GTA, can I somebody showed this in Crimson Desert, where there was a church that was destroyed and people were coming in on Sunday to pray and leave, and there was a statue that was being built, and as the statue was being, like, you stood there and you fast forward, the statue was kept on being built and built and built and built, and it was like, oh wow, that was pretty crazy that it has its own day night cycle, whatever it is. I would say that's been done before. However, to this level of detail, maybe not. Maybe Bethesda didn't, maybe like everyone has a life cycle in the Bethesda game, in Skyrim, Morrowind, but they weren't building things. You know what I mean? I know, for example, in Starfield, they have immersive moments where some ships will go off and do certain things, and those ships will travel to different planets, and then if a bad guy happens to be there, they'll fight. Like these things can happen. These are immersion things. Now, Rockstar is doing the same thing at a core level, but they've just thrown more money at it. And maybe that's innovative, but I think that's more immersion to me. That there's more immersion within the game. You know what I mean? That
I know
would
what
be
you
my
mean.
argument against
I
regular
just
redemption too.
so okay, cool. So your definition of okay, so what's the last innovative game? What's the last game that you thought innovated?
Real quick. First it says, Halo is the most influential game this century. Good shout. Also, what do you think about it? Wait, century? Like this
Huh?
decade?
No. Okay.
Like 21st century Halo. Would
When
you
did
just say
Halo
Skyrim?
one? But Skyrim was not like what did Skyrim innovate? What did it invent?
No, influential. Okay, I
Oh,
think it was actually. I think
oh,
it was actually
is
something
he
different
saying
because
influential?
influential is
Yeah.
different from
Okay, no.
innovative.
Influential is a different thing. I'd have to think about that, Fuzzy, in terms of what's the most influential game. So, like, I'm saying with you, I disagree with you.
Mhm.
So, I agree with you in terms of, like, if you say innovative, and it's like for me saying that you can never invent new genres. You have first person shooter, you have third person shooter, you have role playing. For you, like, we'll never invent new genres. It's almost unlikely unless you come up with new ways to play to invent new genres. Do you agree?
Yeah,
Okay, so I think your definition of
but I mean, we can create like I guess you could say subgenres, aka Metrovania, aka
no, but it's still the
soul
same thing.
genre.
Are you creating new ways to play a game?
No, you're not. Yeah,
It's exactly the same thing. You just
yeah.
you all you're doing is you're innovating on an existing thing, which is why I brought Red Dead Redemption up. Is that they're not doing anything new, but they're innovating on mechanics that exist. And of course, their innovation, to your point, and you're absolutely right, took like tens. The reason they can do that sort of innovation is because they have the studios, the talent, and the money to do it. They can do that. So that requires your innovation relies on financing. The type of innovation that you're talking about, I think, is the sort of thing that
Doesn't exist anymore.
you're not going to get people inventing because, again, as you said, it's a mature market. People are just not going to be inventing new things unless there are new mechanics or new ways to play games that are invented. I said to you that the most innovative console of the last, decade, 2 decades, or whatever, was the Wii. Because of the fact that, and you can argue it was the Wii and the DS, because of the fact that Nintendo actually invented new ways to play games, new ways to control games that had never been done before. Now, that is very different from, well, what was the, and again, like the impact of that was still felt and I think resonated throughout gaming. Even today, the VR craze started with the whole motion controller craze. It reinvigorated this whole idea that people will one day be playing games without controllers. So what I'm saying to you is that yes, you're right. Like,
Do you want to know? Do you want to know? You given I'll give an example of something like because I'm sorry if I'm going to guess my argument. Something that could be completely innovative. If somebody, whoever it is, a Rockstar, Bethesda, Capcom, they make an open world game, and every character is AI, like AI voiced.
I was
and
about
you
to
could,
say the same thing.
yeah,
That
like so
only
to me,
innovation AI.
yeah. So to me, that would be innovation right there, because that's something that would change the way we interact with these games. And I'm saying that like,
But again, you're not
that
building.
change will be on the same level as what Ocarina of Time did, Mario 64 did. Whereas I'm saying what Red Dead Redemption 2 did is at a lower tier. So I guess we kind of we can look at it this way. There's a
But again,
level
that's
one.
not a new. But again, you're not doing anything new. You're not creating a new way to play games. All you've done is you've just given the NPCs in the game.
No, wait, whoa. I mean, I don't know if you believe in that because if I can talk to, if I'm Commander Shepard and I can tell my own story that is not being written by anybody else, and there's potentially 10 million possibilities based on what I'm saying, that is innovative, 100%. If
Okay, wait.
imagine like an open
What
world
do you mean?
space.
Like, okay, explain your like.
Yeah,
What you just.
sure. So imagine if like I let's say it's whatever GTA it's GTA 6 or whatever it is, and the AI part is there in it, And rather than doing any other mission in GTA, I actually live my life in GTA. I go and talk to a shopkeeper and I say, hey, I want to be a bakery guy, but I want to just be a baker. He's like, okay, cool. And out of nowhere, the AI creates like a mini game section for like making bakery. And then they do a persona like system, right? Where I have to decide what I do during the day, during the morning, during the afternoon, during the evening. And it takes up time in real time. And I can go and talk to people like in a proper conversation and be like, hey, how's the family doing? And in real time, the guy actually has a family, the family grows, he has all these problems. It's a real life simulation game where AI is making everything real. And everybody in this world thinks they are real. That is innovation. Because that doesn't exist.
I would consider that more evolution than innovation. And the reason I say that is that you could still interact. Again, you're not creating a new way to interact with things. You're just making things, you're giving things more believable. What is it? Loops. What do they call those loops? They're like, they routines are more believable now. Like, this is stuff that we try to do artificial. This is like, for me, moving from ray tracing to what do they call this? How they color game, how they light games currently now. So it's either you're doing this manually, which is how they do most shadows and all that type of stuff, whereas ray tracing does it dynamically, so it becomes more realistic. It'll make the games more dynamic, but I don't think you've invented anything new. You've improved how NPCs interact, yes, absolutely, through AI, but you've not invented anything new. Like, for instance,
but for example, I would say that's more innovative than Final Fantasy VII making cinematic games, because I think being able to talk to an NPC and like
I agree. This way. I would agree with you. It's more innovative than that, but I would still not say that it's the same thing as inventing Movara, like the mechanics that you have in Super Mario that were never there before, like that nobody has ever done before. So in this case, I would like argue your point about Super Mario and say, no, you're not doing anything new. All you're doing is you're taking what existed and you're putting AI in it, and you're making AI.
Well, for example, like if Skyrim structure says, go to this character right there, and Skyrim says the way this character can fight you is to attack him. Cool, right? But then with the AI as innovation, real quick, Fuzzy says, I've never actually played Red Dead. Watched the buddy play a bunch of it though. It was definitely innovative on a technical level. Yeah, true. I agree there. Halo also innovated as much as any game this century. I think we'll double back to that one because that one seems like I need to think a little bit more about it, right? But if a game's core structure says, the way you make some enemies fight you or a villager fight you is programmed to, like, you have to attack the enemy in Skyrim or whatever, right? And they'll attack you. Fine. But imagine you can go to the enemy and say, hey, what's up? How you doing? And you're able to sweet talk your way. Not program, you yourself, your own skill, you ushers, able to sweet talk your way and make the character either fall in love with you or hate you. And then, or maybe for the character to fight you, you actually start saying racial slurs. And I was like, yo, are you crazy? I'm a guard. Like, you can't do that. You're under arrest for racial slurs. That has to be innovative.
So my thing is like, but what are you doing that's new? Like, you could do that.
Well, you're using your voice to. Because I give it because if we're saying that the Wii is innovative because it gave you motion controls, I'm saying using your voice to control a character in the game is innovative. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, okay, yeah. So if you introduce a component of, okay, now you're going to be interacting with characters using your actual voice, yes, that's a different mechanic. It's a different input method.
I guess what I'm trying to say here is the reason why I think it would be innovative is like the only kind of way.
But the
only kind of way we got this before is through like MMOs, and it's you actually dealing with different characters. Like, for example, I think somebody made a mod where you actually have where all the NPCs in the game is removed, and everybody has to role play and actually be like, a farmer or a trader, all that kind of stuff. And it's very tasking, right? But like, if somebody can say like, no, this is actually my own universe, and I'm gonna come back from work, I'm gonna get on this game, and the story is my own story, and everything is like live. I'm gonna like just like Fable, like Fable says, for example, hey, you can hook up with anybody and have kids, but in this game, you're actually you can't just hook up. You can't press a button to hook up. You actually have to talk to them maybe for 2 weeks straight, flirting and real life conversations, and then they'll actually decide to like date you. Like I don't like that's just yeah, that's innovative. I guess you could say it's an
I think
evolution.
that's the evolution of mechanics, dude. Like, I
Okay.
don't think that's evolution. Like for me, like something like sorry, I don't think that's innovative.
Mhm.
Innovative, to your point, is like what Connect tried to do, whereas now you can give Commander Shepard voice commands and it actually works, right? Because it changes the way you interact with the game. Interacting with NPCs, making NPCs more realistic using AI. I don't think that is innovation. It's you evolving a specific set of mechanics within the game. It's the same thing now. Instead of using artificial light, now they can use real time light using ray tracing. It's an evolution of mechanics. It's not, in my opinion, I would not consider that innovation, and I could be wrong. I maybe my classification of that is wrong. So Fuzzy says Halo CE made the first person shooter actually feel good on console. Halo 2 basically invented console online multiplayer skill based game matchmaking. But I raise you one thing, Fuzzy, and that's GoldenEye. That GoldenEye, if you're saying that like on console in terms of like the first person shooter that changed things or made first person shooters attractive to console, I would say GoldenEye for me did more than Halo CE did. Sorry, go on, Ty.
No, I think that's a good one. You said
So,
one
so basically, okay.
evolution.
So let me go back to what I was saying in terms of like, but I agree with you. Most innovations that are going to happen is probably going to be through AI. It's going to be a combination of what you're saying and a whole bunch of other things. But then then they need to change fundamentally. Like, let me put it like this. Do you watch, I think you did watch that episode of the dodgy episode of Black Mirror with Anthony Mackie and Yaya something something Abdul Menti.
But before you finish, Fuzzy, Fuzzy says GoldenEye did not feel good to play. And, I never actually played GoldenEye,
Oh,
even though it was like seen as a very innovative game at the time. Halo 3 brought in Forged, and yeah, I think I need to look at GoldenEye a little bit more and like the gameplay mechanics, like how did they do it, But Fuzzy, here's a question for you, Fuzzy, just before Ushers goes. If we implement AI into like video games, and I mean like talking, right? So Skyrim, Red Dead Redemption, you're playing with your controller, but every single command, like talking, is based on your microphone. So you're talking to these characters, and everything you say is remembered. If you're an asshole, they remember it. Yeah, you can ask a character like, "Hey, what's up? How you doing? How was work?" They'll be like, "Oh, it was cool. Like, how you do?" And then you tell the character like, "Hey, you know what? Do you want to like go get some coffee with me?" And the character's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm married." Like real life interactions, and that is remembered throughout your experience. So you've been playing this game for like 2 years straight, and that character remembers the conversations from 2 years ago, and it's been built upon. So like for 1 year straight, you've been an asshole. Everyone thinks you're an asshole. This is not like Fable, where oh, I increase the rent here and whatever it is. Somebody comes to you and actually begs you, like, yo, bro, like, why are you increasing the rents? Like, you're gonna destroy my family. And you say, well, it is what it is, bro. And they're like, bro, I'm begging you. Then you say, you know what? If you go fight that dragon in that hill, or you come with me, I might consider decreasing the rent if you come as a support. And the guy's like, yeah, okay, fine. But I can't fight though. Okay, fine. Here's a bow and arrow. You stay back and just pick out his health. And he's like, yeah, perfect. Like if that interaction can play out via AI, would you consider that innovative or an evolution of what we have? Wait, Osha, was it evolution you said?
yeah, evolution. So
Yeah,
so
would you think that's innovative or an evolution?
so what I'll say to you, Ty, is that like you sound like someone that's not played a lot of CRPGs. Because what you just described is something that happens in almost every single CRPG.
No, I know.
That's the level of interaction that you can do. The only thing is, of course, you can. What AI is going to do is it's going to add voice and it's going to add like additional layers of complexity. But CRPGs already do this. Go play Disco Elysium. Go play Even that game that you talked about, what is it? Torment,
Yeah, Torment.
Tales of Memoria, or whatever. All those games already do that.
So where I would I would disagree. Oh, not disagree. Well, yeah, actually, yeah, disagree. Fuck you. Where I would push back
Mhm.
is that all these are scripted, and because they're scripted, they're all defined and it's limited. So there's like 4 or 5, and it's very, very limited on what you can do.
Well, no, not on CRPGs. Remember, in CRP, you're right, they're scripted. On CRPGs, you can script because of the fact that everything is text based. Literally, the number of like different, like for instance, the closest modern AAA game that comes close to doing that is Baldur's Gate, and it's because of the fact that a guy from Bethesda actually said this. He says that the most impressive thing about Baldur's Gate is the fact that unlike us, when we script things, we have to limit the amount of options based on the fact that in terms of economics, we have to think about, well, how many times is a person going to interact with this character for them to get different outcomes. So it's always an economy of like trying to manage, like, well, is it worth it making sure that this NPC has 100 different responses when only maybe 5% of the audience will actually talk to the NPC? And he said that the most amazing thing about Baldur's Gate 3 is the fact that it's almost like they threw out that out the window to say, we don't care. The bottom line is that every single time someone interacts with this, they'll have a dynamic, different experience. And that's what they focused on in doing, which most RPGs don't do. Now, that's a triple A blockbuster RPG. An RPG like, for instance, King, what is it called? Pathfinder. I think it's Kingmaker, and then there's the sequel. An RPG like that has the additional what's the word I'm looking for? It has the luxury of being able to give you 100 or 1,000 different responses from an NPC. You can actually, it's the same thing that Divinity Original Sin did. The world reacts to you dynamically because there are so many dynamic options that have been programmed into it. Now, with AI, can you do that more for more NPCs? Probably. You can procedurally generate responses, but you still not gonna get the same curated experiences and stories that people wrote, and at the same time you still get dynamic outcomes of that. So all I'm saying is that the thing that you're describing, it already exists in smaller CRPGs, and it's just as dynamic to a large degree, simply because of the fact that they can.
Oh no. Oh no. He's cut off. But the huh. Asha might be having some tech issues, boys. Um Man, how am I gonna carry this show with my throat? Oh god damn. Um so my argument here. Am I still here? I am. Rage, sorry, Fuzzy says, every shooter copied Halo's controls, no GoldenEye controls. You know what, Fuzzy? I think I need to look at. You're right, like, but I think GoldenEye wasn't like the first. No, it wasn't the first shooting game. Oh, Usher's just lost power. Oh, he lost power. So I'm surprised I haven't been kicked out and this whole stream hasn't been shut down. Yeah, listen, first, I guess it's just me and you. There are actually already indie games where you can speak into a microphone and talk to an AI. They're still pretty basic, but they exist. Can you tell me what these games are? Because I would like to look into them. So I did ask AI. Let me tell you the question I asked it. I said, is using AI to have every character have a real life definition, and we can talk to them and have real relationships they respond to, would that be innovative or more of an evolution? And the AI said, This is Grok, by the way. He says, this is mostly a genuine innovation, especially in its full form, rather than just an evolution of traditional game design. It represents a fundamental shift in how games handle characters, dialogue, and player interaction. Why it's innovative and not just iterative. Traditional NPCs in games, even great ones like Red Dead Redemption 2, The Witcher 3, and Baldur's Gate 3, rely on pre written scripts, branching dialogues, and limited triggers. I'm so sorry. I don't remember I saw Jaffe stream it once. I'll Google it because I think I did Google this before. Writers and designers handcraft thousands of lines, but the characters are ultimately static. They have fixed responses, limited or no real memory across long sessions, no true improvise, improvisation. Sorry. Relationships are predefined with few flags. Um, what you're describing, every character having a rich backstory, real life definition, unlimited natural conversations via AI, persistent memory, evolving real relationships, and believable responses, breaks that model entirely. This uses large language models, LLMs, persistent memory systems, and long term recall, knowledge graphs, and agentic AI so NPCs can remember specific conversations and events across multiple play sessions, develop dynamic personalities, emotions, trust levels, and goals that change based on your actions, generate unscripted dialogue on the fly from ongoing relationships that feel personal and emergent friendships, romance, rivalry, betrayal, redemption arcs that weren't pre planned. This creates emergent storylines where no two players experience the same character the same way. It's closer to talking to a real imperfect person than clicking through menu options. In 2026, tools like in-world AI, NVIDIA Ace, Genova, and others are making this practical with systems that simulate human-like memory, including forgetting summarizing details for realism. Okay, why some might call it an evolution. So, Fuzzy, you did give an answer as to what you would call it an evolution or innovative. But it says, here's why